I thought I understood fear, but I was the one who instilled it. I was a prince, yet I wore my crown like a shroud, and then I descended into darkness, where even the light of my mother's love couldn't reach. What I found there was more horrifying than any enemy. It was a secret that gnawed at the very soul of my kingdom. The air was thick as I stepped deeper, each step echoing my defiance. I was not just a prince, I was a king in the making, at least in my own mind. My heart raced as I descended into the bowels of the black tide, a prison of old where traitors were left to rot. My mother would never allow me to venture here, but fear was merely a word, and I craved the knowledge of its face. As I tiptoed down the narrow staircase into the depths of the dungeon, the walls sweat with condensation and the pungent smell of mildew filled the air. I glanced back at my guards, whose faithful presence only fueled my growing arrogance. In that moment, I was determined to look fear straight in the eye. There, in the dampness, I found him, a skeleton of a man, blind and nameless, once a royal advisor to the Mad King. The shadows pooled in the corners of the cell as I took in the withered figure, my breath quickening. The old man lifted his head, sensing my presence, a rasping breath escaping his lips. "You, sir, you are worse than Eris." "He burned bodies, you burn souls," he croaked. His words were a dagger, cutting deep into the facade of my power. What did he know of me? I was the crown, and I would not be challenged. Anger boiled within me, twisting my insides. I ordered him to be silent, to be locked away, along with my scribe. 3 days passed. I returned, eager to witness the consequences of my wrath. But what greeted me was a twisted tableau. The scribe sat against the wall, trembling, while a guard lay lifeless, throat slashed, blood pooling beneath him. The scent of death rose thick and suffocating. "Not everyone fears you, Joffrey," the scribe whispered, his voice shaky. "Some fear the fate of becoming what you are." In that moment, a seed of doubt took root. Was I truly the king I believed myself to be? Or was I merely a child playing a game far beyond my understanding? I took a step back, my heart racing, a mix of horror and confusion washing over me. That night, sleep evaded me. I was haunted by a vision, a cell, blind, forgotten, and a whisper in the dark. Kings die in shadows. The old man from the dungeon appeared in my dream, knife glinting in the dim light. "Remember, Joffrey, the darkest prisons are not made of stone." I awoke with a gasp, heart racing, eyes darting around the room. My hands trembled as I tried to dismiss the weight of that encounter. Yet from that day, I ruled with an iron fist, driven by a terror I could not shake. I demanded silence on the past, obliterating the name of the Mad King from every tongue. Court was a game of power, my laughter echoing through the hall as I watched the sycophants squirm. I burned the dungeon to ashes, convinced that the past could vanish with it, yet still the smoke curled upwards, a constant reminder of my own darkness. It was during a grand feast, amid celebration and laughter, that my life unraveled. Poison whispered through the air, mingling with joy. And as I tasted betrayal, the shadows closed in around me. I clutched my throat, gasping for air as chaos erupted around me. In that moment, the prison I had built for others became my own. I was blind, forgotten, as they whispered behind my back. One guard leaned in closer to me, his voice low, barely a breath as I fell to the ground. He died long before this day, in the darkness below. You see, dear viewer, I had thought I could escape the legacy of madness, but in my quest to be king, I became the very monster I sought to eliminate, a shadow of my own making. And in the shadow of death, perhaps, I found life. The echoes of my reign serve as a warning. Every king ploughs darkness is a reflection of his own soul. If this tale of madness and cruelty haunts you as it haunts me, subscribe for the next chapter of stories where shadows lurk and light battles to take form. Together, we will uncover the secrets hidden in the dark. I descended further into the bowels of the black tide, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. The dank scent of damp stone filled my nostrils as I approached the cell that housed the old man. Was I prepared for what lay inside? The rusty iron door creaked open, and I stepped into the darkness, my guards flanking me with uncertain steps. The flickering torchlight illuminated the contours of the cell, revealing a world forgotten by time. The shadows crawled along the walls like ghosts, slithering away from the light. I could feel perspiration beading on my forehead as I approached the old man, whose face was a map of despair and time. His milky eyes turned toward my voice, as if he could sense my presence despite his blindness. "You seek wisdom, boy," he rasped, his voice echoing off the cold stones. "But wisdom often brings with it a heavy price. Are you willing to pay it?" What did this old wretch know of me? I was a prince, destined for greatness. How dare he question my resolve? I scoffed at his words, my bravado masking the uncertainty gnawing at my insides. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice dripping with authority. "What do you know of power? You, a forgotten man trapped in the bowels of a crumbling prison." He chuckled, a sound that resonated through the silence, chilling my blood. "Ah, but power is not held in titles and crowns, boy. It is held in the hearts of men, whether they cower before you or conspire in darkness. You wield fear like a blade, but remember, fear cuts both ways." I felt a shiver run down my spine, an unsettling inkling that gripped my heart. This was not what I had come for. I had come to confront fear, not to have it whispered back in my ear like a serpent plus's hiss. "And what would you know of fear?" I challenged. "You are nothing but a husk of a man, a relic of a time long past." The old man leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I was once a trusted advisor to the Mad King. I saw the faces of those he burned, the fear in their eyes, and I witnessed the very soul of the kingdom turn to ash. You are no different, boy. You toy with madness and cruelty as if they were your playthings." Rage surged within me, bubbling to the surface like a raging storm. How dare he compare me to that lunatic? I felt the heat of fury envelop me, and I raised my hand to silence him. "You will remain silent, old man. Your words are laced with poison, and I am done listening to the ramblings of a forgotten fool. Lock him away." The guards obeyed, but as they dragged the old man away, I could see the flash of triumph in his blind eyes. It unnerved me, but I brushed it aside, convinced that I was the master of my fate, the prince who would rise above the ashes of the past. Days passed, and yet I felt an unsettling weight pressing upon me. I would lie awake at night, wrestling with the shadows that whispered in the dark corners of my mind. Memories of that encounter haunted my dreams, nagging at my conscience, toying with the edges of my sanity. And then it happened. A fleeting moment when I found myself standing before the mirror, confronting the reflection staring back. A ghostly visage, a prince lost in the echoes of his own ambition. I was no longer sure of who I was. I ventured into the courtyard, seeking solace in the sunlight, hoping it would wash away the darkness clinging to my spirit. But as I stepped outside, a chill settled in the air, wrapping around me like a shroud. I could hear whispers, cruel and mocking, echoing in my ears. I turned, searching for the source, but only shadows danced in the corners of my vision. Was I losing my mind? In my arrogance, I thought I could escape the legacy of my lineage. But the truth was, I was bound to it, like a chain wrapped around my soul. My father, my legacy, the Mad King's blood coursed through my veins. The very thought sent a jolt of terror through me. Those nights in the dungeon, I had hoped to find power. But instead, I had stoked the flames of my own doubts. There was a darkness, an insatiable hunger within me that threatened to consume everything I held dear. As I sat upon the Iron Throne, the weight of the crown pressed down upon me. The court watched with bated breath, and I reveled in their fear, but deep inside a voice cried out. Demanding to be heard, the darkness whispered, "You will become the very thing you fear." But I would not let that happen. I was Joffrey Baratheon, a prince destined for greatness. I would squash the doubts and paint my reign in blood and fire, ensuring they whispered my name in fear for generations to come. Yet, as time marched on, the dark shadows of the dungeon began to creep back into my mind. I could feel them lurking, waiting for the moment I would falter. And that moment arrived at the grand feast, the day that was to be my crowning glory. Poison danced upon my lips as the laughter enveloped the hall. The joy of the wedding seemed like a distant echo, and as I raised my goblet in a toast, I could feel the icy fingers of dread curling around my heart. What had I unleashed? What darkness awaited me in the shadows? When betrayal strikes, it often comes wrapped in festivity. And as the music swelled, so did the tide of fear. The air thickened, suffocating me, each note a reminder of the chains I had forged for myself. Laughter echoed around me, but it mingled with the whispers of the old man, haunting me, reminding me of the shadows I had tried to escape. It was then that I felt it, sharp and sudden, a knife plunging into the depths of my soul. I clutched my throat, gasping for air, and for the first time, I tasted the bitterness of my own mortality. The court erupted into chaos, screams echoing through the hall as I struggled in vain. And there, in that moment, everything came crashing down. I was not a king, I was a prisoner of my own creation. The shadows swirled around me, swallowing me whole, until all I could hear were the whispers, the very words I had tried so desperately to silence. As the chaos unfolded around me, I could hear the faint echoes of my own heart, drowning in the tumult. The faces of my guests twisted in fear, laughter now a distant memory as they realized the fragility of power. I was their king, yet I felt more like a wretched thief, stealing breaths of air that were meant for the living. Falling to my knees, I grasped at the cold stones of the floor, feeling the rough edges biting into my palms. Each gasp of breath felt like a bell tolling, marking the end of my reign, and yet the fear that coursed through their veins fueled me. I had built my empire on fear, but now that very fear turned against me, tearing at the seams of my sanity. In the dim light of the throne room, I saw the shadows of my past swirling around me. The old man's words echoed in my mind, a remnant of the darkness I thought I could conquer. You will become the very thing you fear. And how true it was. My ambition had led me down this path, a road paved with the corpses of those who dared to defy me. As I fought against the poison, visions of the dungeon crept back into my consciousness, dark, damp, and echoing with the cries of the forgotten. The very shadows that had whispered to me were now clawing at my soul, dragging me into the abyss. I could feel the weight of the Iron Throne crushing down upon me, the cold metal a constant reminder of my legacy, a legacy stained with blood and betrayal. "Help! Someone help me!" I screamed, but the words felt hollow, echoing back as if the walls themselves took pleasure in my suffering. The faces of my guards swam before me, their eyes wide with fear, as if they too were caught in the grip of an unseen terror. Then, amidst the chaos, a whisper broke through the din, soft yet piercing. "He died long before this day." In the darkness below, it was the voice of the guard, the one who had been my shadow. His words hung in the air, a chilling reminder that I had become a prisoner within my own mind. I had been ensnared by the very darkness I sought to control. The shadows were not merely a figment of my imagination, they were a manifestation of my own fears, the ghosts of the past clawing to be released. In that moment, I understood. I was not just fighting for my life, I was grappling with the very essence of who I was. The Mad King's blood ran through my veins, and as I lay gasping for breath, I couldn't help but ponder the legacy I would leave behind. Would they remember me as a tyrant, a boy who wore the crown yet ruled with a heart of stone? Or would my name be but a whisper, lost in the echoes of time? The very thought filled me with dread as I felt the darkness closing in, wrapping around me like a vice. As my vision blurred, I caught a glimpse of my own reflection in the polished stone. A fleeting image of a boy lost in a world of shadows. A puppet dancing on the strings of fate. I had thought myself a king, yet I was merely a pawn in a game far older than I could comprehend. And then, as the last breath drew near, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The darkness no longer felt like a prison. Instead, it transformed into a sanctuary, a refuge where I could finally confront the demons that had haunted me. I had fought for so long, but now surrendering felt like a release. In that final moment, I realized that the throne I had so desperately clung to was nothing but an illusion, a gilded cage masking the decay beneath. The laughter, the fear, the power, all mere shadows playing tricks on my mind. As the darkness enveloped me, I understood the truth. Every king's reign must end, but within that end lies the birth of something new. And perhaps, just perhaps, in the ashes of my ambition, life would find a way to emerge. For as I descended into oblivion, I found solace in the thought that even in death, shadows could not extinguish the light. Even in my final moments, I felt the shadows creeping closer, their ethereal tendrils wrapping around me as I surrendered to the inevitable. The chaos faded into a distant echo, the laughter of my guests replaced by silence, a profound understanding washing over me. I had become a victim of my own making, a puppet tangled in the strings of fate. The Iron Throne, once a symbol of power and grandeur, now stood as a monument to my failures, a reminder that the weight of the crown was far heavier than I had anticipated. As the darkness enveloped me, visions of my past flashed before my eyes, a collage of faces I had wronged, of laughter turned to screams, of moments where I had let power corrupt my very being. I saw the old man from the dungeon, his ghostly visage looming over me, offering silent judgment as I sank deeper into the abyss. But even in the depths of despair, I felt a flicker, a sliver of hope breaking through the shadows. Perhaps in acknowledging my flaws, I could find redemption. I could not change the past, but I could embrace the lessons it offered, accepting my humanity amidst the horrors that defined my reign. As the darkness consumed me, I surrendered to the truth. Kings may wear crowns, but it is the soul that reigns supreme. And in that moment, I understood that true power lies not in fear or cruelty, but in compassion and understanding. For every king must face the shadows, those lurking in the corners of the mind, those echoing through the corridors of time. It is in confronting these shadows that we find our true selves, and perhaps in doing so, we can break free from the chains of our past. As my final breath escaped my lips, I whispered a silent apology to the boy I had once been. A boy who dreamed of greatness, who sought power above all else. It was time to let go, to release the burden of kingship and embrace the light that awaited beyond the horizon. And in that moment of release, I found life amidst the darkness, a lesson that even the most twisted paths can lead to the dawn of a new beginning. A chance to rise from the ashes, to become not just a king, but a beacon of hope for those who would come after me. If this tale of madness and cruelty haunts you as it haunts me, subscribe for the next chapter of stories where shadows lurk and light battles to take form. Together, we will uncover the secrets hidden in the dark, for even in darkness, there lies a flicker of hope waiting to be ignited. I awoke not in the depths of a dungeon, nor in the grandeur of a castle, but in a realm of shadows, a liminal space where the boundaries of life and death blurred. The air was thick with whispers, and I could sense the weight of countless souls surrounding me, each carrying their own burdens, their own stories of pain and regret. As I floated in this twilight, I could hear fragments of their tales echoing in the silence. Some were filled with despair, while others held fleeting moments of hope. Each story intertwined with mine, creating a tapestry of existence that stretched far beyond the confines of my own arrogance. In this realm, I was no longer Joffrey Baratheon, the prince with a crown. I was simply a lost soul seeking redemption. The shadows that had once filled me with dread now danced around me, beckoning me to confront the very essence of my being. I had spent so long running from the darkness that I had forgotten the beauty of embracing it. A figure emerged from the shadows, his form ethereal yet familiar. It was the old man from the dungeon, his presence both haunting and comforting. He looked at me with eyes that seemed to pierce through the veil of my existence, and I felt the weight of his judgment upon me. "You sought power, boy," he intoned, his voice resonating through the void. "But power without empathy is a poison that corrupts the soul. Your reign was built on fear, and in that fear you lost yourself. I wanted to scream, to defend myself against the accusations, but instead I felt the truth wrapping around me like a shroud." He was right. I had become a tyrant, a shadow of my former self, driven by a hunger for dominance that had ultimately consumed me. "But it is not too late," the old man continued, his voice softening. "Even in darkness, there lies a path to redemption. You must confront the shadows within you and learn to let go of the fear that binds you." As his words resonated through the ether, I felt the shackles of my past begin to loosen. Memories flooded my mind, every cruel act, every moment of rage, and every ounce of pain I had inflicted upon others. They danced before me, vivid and grotesque, urging me to acknowledge the consequences of my actions. "Face your fears, Joffrey," the old man said. "Only then can you begin to heal." With a deep breath, I stepped forward into the darkness, allowing the shadows to envelop me. It was a terrifying leap into the unknown, but I knew that it was necessary. Each step felt like a descent into my own soul, where the echoes of my choices reverberated through the air. I revisited the memories of those I had wronged, friends, foes, innocents caught in my crossfire. Each face came alive before me, their eyes filled not with hatred, but with sorrow. The pain I had caused was palpable, a weight that anchored me to the past. I saw the old woman whose son had been executed for a crime he did not commit, the child whose laughter had been silenced by my wrath. With each encounter, I felt a piece of my heart shatter, but those shards began to crystallize into understanding. I was not just a ruler, I was a human being, flawed and broken, capable of redemption. Each moment of remorse was a step toward reclaiming my soul. In this realm, I found the boy I once was, a boy who had dreamed of honor and glory, who had sought to protect rather than destroy. I knelt before him, tears streaming down my face, begging for forgiveness. "I lost my way," I cried out, my voice echoing in the silence. "I let the darkness consume me." The boy looked at me with a mixture of sadness and compassion. "It's not too late to change," he whispered. "You can still find your way back." As I embraced the child I had once been, the shadows began to shift. The darkness that had once felt oppressive now transformed into a sanctuary of light. I could feel the warmth of hope igniting within me, a flicker that spread like wildfire, illuminating the corners of my soul. The old man reappeared, a faint smile gracing his lips. "You are ready," he said, his voice filled with encouragement. "Embrace the light that resides within you. Use it to guide others away from the darkness you once knew." With those words, I felt an overwhelming surge of clarity. I realized that I had been given a second chance, a chance to rewrite my story, to become not a king ruled by fear, but a leader inspired by compassion. The shadows of my past would always be a part of me, but they no longer held power over my future. As I emerged from the darkness, my heart felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of my sins. I opened my eyes to a world bathed in light, the echoes of my past fading into the distance. I was no longer merely Joffrey Baratheon. I was a man reborn, ready to face the challenges ahead. But the journey was far from over. I understood that true leadership required more than power. It demanded empathy and understanding. It required a recognition of the struggles faced by those who looked to me for guidance. I would strive to be the king my people deserved, the leader who would seek justice and healing rather than vengeance. As I set foot back on the path of my life, I felt a sense of purpose coursing through my veins. I would share my story, not as a tale of cruelty, but as a testament to redemption. If my journey could inspire even one soul to break free from the chains of darkness, then it would all have been worth it. And so, dear viewer, I invite you to join me on this journey of discovery and transformation. If you wish to explore the depths of the human soul and uncover the hidden truths within, subscribe to my channel. Let us navigate the shadows together, seeking the light that resides just beyond our grasp. In the battle between darkness and hope, every story matters, and together we can illuminate the path for those who follow. As I embraced this newfound purpose, I felt an invigorating rush of emotion coursing through me, a mixture of hope, determination, and an understanding of the weight that lay ahead. Each step I took was a promise to myself, a vow that I would not let my past define me. I was now a vessel for change, a harbinger of compassion in a world that so desperately needed it. The realization of my journey sank deep into my bones. The shadows I had once feared were now allies, guiding me to confront not just my past, but the future I wanted to build. I envisioned a kingdom where fear was replaced with understanding, where empathy reigned as the strongest currency, and where every soul was valued, no matter their station. I could hear the faint sound of laughter in the distance, a melody of life that filled my heart with warmth. It was a sound I had long forgotten, drowned by the echoes of my own tyranny. But now, as I moved forward, I sought to cultivate that laughter once more, to rebuild, to heal, and to inspire those who had suffered under the weight of my crown. In the weeks that followed, I began to see the change manifest, not just within myself, but in those around me. The court, once filled with sycophants and fear, now buzzed with a renewed sense of purpose. I reached out, extended my hand to those I had wronged, and sought not just forgiveness, but understanding. Every encounter was a step towards redemption. The old woman whose son I had executed wept, but her tears transformed into words of hope as she spoke of forgiveness. The child I had silenced with my cruelty now stood before me, showing me the power of resilience. With each conversation, I could feel the walls I had built around my heart crumbling, replaced by bridges of connection. Yet I knew the path forward would not be without challenges. There would be those who clung to the fear I had instilled, those who would resist the changes I sought to implement. I would have to confront my own shadows again, face the inner demons that whispered doubts and fears into my ear. I also understood that being a leader meant vulnerability. It meant sharing my own story, my own struggles, and the lessons I had learned in the darkness. I began to speak openly about my past, about the mistakes I had made, and the journey of redemption I was on. I spoke not only to my court, but to the people of my kingdom, reaching out to those who felt voiceless. I was met with mixed reactions. Some welcomed the change, while others remained skeptical. But I persisted, believing in the power of honesty and transparency. I held town halls, shared my vision for a better future, and listened to the voices of the people. Through it all, I found strength in the connections I forged. I learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength that could unite us. The more I opened my heart, the more the people responded. They began to share their own stories of pain and hope, and together we wove a tapestry of resilience that could weather even the darkest storms. I realized that my journey was not just about me, it was about each individual who called this kingdom home. Their struggles were my struggles, and their victories my own. As I watched the community come together, I felt a sense of belonging that I had never known before. And with every interaction, every moment of shared laughter and sorrow, I felt an echo of hope reverberating through my heart. The shadows of my past transformed into lessons, guiding me as I ventured forward. In this new chapter, I became not just a ruler, but a servant to those I had once sought to dominate. As the seasons changed, so did the atmosphere in the kingdom. The air was filled with the fragrance of blooming flowers, a metaphor for the blossoming hope that enveloped us. We built schools, supported families, and created spaces where everyone had a voice. The shadows were no longer a weight, but a reminder that we had all traversed the darkness. Yet deep within me, I held on to the lesson that the journey of redemption was ongoing. It was a commitment to be better, to learn from my past mistakes, and to continue evolving as both a leader and a person. I knew that the shadows would always linger, but it was my choice to let them guide me rather than consume me. And so, dear viewer, as I share this tale of transformation, I urge you to reflect on your own shadows. What lessons lie hidden in your past? What stories still seek to be told? Together, let us embark on this journey of self-discovery and healing. If you wish to explore the depths of the human experience, subscribe to my channel. Together, we can shine a light where darkness once reigned, illuminating the path for ourselves and for those who come after us. For in the dance between light and shadows, we find not just our identities, but our connections, uniting us in our shared humanity. Join me, and let's embrace the hope that lies ahead.